Hello and welcome. And before we start this entire disassembly video, I want to just touch on a few very important points to ensure the longevity and function of the SSR249. The outer barrel assembly, as along with the inner barrel assembly, is easily removed by depressing this here. Now this should not be done unless you absolutely need to disassemble the gun. For general maintenance, like cleaning the barrel and everything, you can leave it in place, turn the hop up to 0 and just clean it with a cleaning rod from the front. Not unless there is something seriously wrong with your hop up, like changing a bucking or such, should you remove this. Next, an important point to pay attention to as well is the alignment of your magazine and hop up chamber is very, very important. To ensure this, we've actually screw glued in place a few very important screws that we really ask you not to disassemble when disassembling your gun. The first of these screws is here on the left-hand side, holding the trunnion in place. This aligns the outer barrel and inner barrel with the nozzle on the inside of the gun. Along with that alignment, we also have separate, you can see here, when I open it up, move the feed tray out of position. This magazine well has 2 screws on the top of it as well. This ensures that the magazine itself is feeding directly into your hop-up chamber. If you disassemble these 3 screws, we cannot 100% confirm that everything's going to be aligned very well. So please do not disassemble that unless it is absolutely necessary. First things first, we're going to be making sure everything is safe. So to do so, we need to remove the battery, make sure the gun's safe, and make sure on this side, once again, that the magazine is unplugged. So for now, let's check out taking off the handguard to get to the battery compartment. For this, you'll need an Allen key, and you'll undo again screws on the left, right, and the bottom side. Only one on the left in the rearward position, one on the right. Again on the rearward position, and then we can flip upside down, remove the magazine, and remove the screw in the front of the handguard on the bottom, and pull it upwards. Once again, this might be a little bit tight, so if there's screw glue there, don't worry, if you've undone all those 3 screws correctly, it will come off with a little bit more force. So now we can see it's unplugged, there's no battery inside, so we can get started on the muzzle. Next, we'll remove the flash hider itself. To do this, we'll need a small Allen key on the front, and we'll undo this 1 screw on the bottom. We can just back it up slightly until it's standing a little bit proud, at which point we can unscrew the flash hider in the right clockwise position to unscrew it completely from the outer barrel. There's a little washer on the back of it, don't lose that guy, and the O-ring we can leave there. If you need to replace it, which I highly doubt, you can remove that as well. Next, we can remove the outer barrel, inner barrel, and the hop-up. To do this, we depress this lever on the left-hand side of the gun, push it in the rearward position towards the stock, and the barrel will pop up and outwards, at which time we can pull it out the front. Now coming out with this assembly is the inner barrel and the hop-up, which we can get to in a bit to disassemble as well. Next, I'm going to remove this upper portion of the handguard. So again, taking the correct size Allen key, and we'll undo the rest of the 4 screws holding this together. Now when disassembling a larger piece like this, it might be useful to have a few small bowls on your workspace. Unless you have a nice big workspace like this, a few small bowls or something to hold all of the small parts, make sure that you don't lose anything, would be very useful. After undoing this last one, the upper portion of the handguard comes off completely and reveals the chassis below. Next, we can focus on the rear stock. So we undo this pin, turn the gun onto its side, and then we'll need to remove this bottom pin. For this, I'm going to be using the pin punch and a nice soft hammer. So placing the pin punch on. Should not take much force, but you can remove this pin. And now the whole stock assembly comes off, which we can set aside. Next, we can focus on removing this bottom handguard since we've removed the pin already. And to do that, we just need a very small flat screwdriver. And we'll see there on the front edge of this assembly, you don't remove the pin. There's actually a small screw there with a flat end screwdriver, and you turn it clockwise to undo it. And then this whole assembly will raise straight off, revealing a portion of the gearbox underneath. Now we can flip this around, and next we will be removing this top cover and this feeding ramp. So to do that, we need to remove this pin, and to do so, we need to undo the small Allen key on the corner there. Once we've undone that, the pin should be free to be removed. And then we can lift off, retaining the spring, the entire top cover assembly, and the feed ramp itself. Now right now we're down to the bare bones. We have the chassis in front of us with the gearbox assembly inside of it, which we can now remove. Now at this point of the disassembly, I do want to stress the importance of the alignment of the entire system. Mainly focuses on two things: this trunnion in the center of the gearbox and the rest of the gun, as well as this feed ramp for the magazine. Now we've screw glued these screws in a specific way so that you should not need to remove them. You can remove the one on the right hand side in order to remove the charging handle, but it is not advised to remove the entire trunnion or barrel trunnion assembly out of the chassis, because this may affect the alignment of your hop-up to the nozzle and the gun might not work that well anymore. So next, let's remove this gearbox. To do that, we need an Allen key of the correct size, and we remove these two screws on the left-hand side of the chassis. So 1 and 2. Next, we will remove the charging handle. To do that, we can pull it back slightly and then remove the screw here. Once we remove that screw, the charging handle can slide out completely and be removed. And then we can remove this spring for the charging handle. And now the entire gearbox assembly should push forward and lift up and out of our chassis. There our gearbox is free, and we're left with the bare bones chassis. Now, to further disassemble this, you can, but there should not be a need to. For this faux gas block on the front of it, we can also then remove this barrel release switch, but it should not be necessary. This should be as far as you would go to disassemble the gun completely. Moving to the barrel assembly, the outer barrel assembly, and the top cover, we can further disassemble this by removing the rear sight, by removing these 4 screws. And then the entire rear sight would come out. We can also disassemble the front sight with a screw undoing that little Allen key screw there, and then this whole front sight post will slide off of the dovetail as well, but this should not be necessary. Next, we're going to be looking at removing the hop-up from the barrel. So to do so is pretty simple. First, we're going to remove the adjustment ring just by pulling firmly backwards, popping it off of the 2 guidance O-rings. We must be careful not to remove, or lose rather, the small nub. We can pull it out, and you'll see that the nub itself has, from the side angle, a curved section which is facing outwards towards the adjuster ring, and a flat section with some chamfers that faces down into the bucking window. So just remember that orientation when you put it back together again. Next, to remove this from the barrel, there is a small screw on the bottom. We'll have to undo that. So we back that screw out just gently. And next, we can take a small flat screwdriver and carefully pop out the locking C-clip from the barrel. There we go. This may be a little bit tight, but be gentle and you'll get it out. Noticing when you do remove it that there is actually an orientation to this C-clip, and the windows or vents, as you want to see them, like this, is facing towards the front of the barrel, not to the rear. This is to ensure that the two little flat surfaces on the inside of the C-clip, which you can see there, are actually aligned correctly with the two flat surfaces of our barrel. Now from this point onwards, we can push this alignment ring forward and remove the bucking gently to reveal the bucking window in the barrel. And this is essentially a disassembled hop-up unit.